Okay, welcome once more, everyone, to another webcast of Alexandra Mayers Live. This should be my final one for the evening and probably for the rest of the week until Friday, because I have some other things I need to do. But I did want to touch on something that I felt was pretty important. In this webcast of Alexandra Mayers Live, and the archives of this webcast, by the way, you can find on alexandramayerslive.com. I'm going to discuss a few things that people who've blamed the male porn star known as Jaxton Wheeler and the female porn star known as Jessica Drake for in regards to Mercedes Grabowski, aka August Ames' death. These are some things that I feel that people might need to know in regards to the circumstances, and specifically about her husband known as Kevin Moore, because Kevin Moore at one point was also known online as Dark Priest, from what I could find. And there's several forum posts that I feel are relevant to the situation that I really want people to know about. So what I'm going to do is utilize the screen share feature of this webcast. That way I can kind of go through some things. And I do want to preface this by saying to all of those out there who really loved, truly, genuinely loved and cared for Mercedes Grabowski, also known as August Ames, my heart goes out to you. I didn't know the girl, but she seemed like a really nice person who positively affected a lot of people's lives. So let me go ahead and just start from the beginning. Now, for those of you who are not aware of who Mercedes Grabowski, aka August Ames, is, this is her IAFD profile. Here she is. As you can see, she was born in Nova Scotia, Canada, and she was active in the adult entertainment industry from 2013 to 2017. Now, here's what I want to focus on tonight. I found this article on somethingawful.com, and it's titled Confessions of a Pornographer. And this was what led me to find Kevin Moore's alter ego or alter alias. And I'm not saying he hid it or anything. It's just something that I didn't see talked about in mainstream media. But he was also posting fairly frequently, it seemed somewhere between 2013, maybe earlier, in 2015, as Dark Priest on this website's forum. And as you can see here, there was an interview that linked his stage name, Kevin Moore, or maybe it's his real name, I really don't know, to this Dark Priest persona. It seems that since he was about 10 years into the industry, that's when he started posting. Actually, it says right here, Kevin Moore registered for the Something Awful forums back in December of 2000, choosing the name Dark Priest. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that first, because there was another adult entertainment industry blogger who was asking me, how do you know it's him? And I was like, well, you know, this is what said so right here. And just so you know, Kevin Moore, it seems, has tried to memorialize Mercedes Grabowski via these t-shirts that were passed out for free during the Adult Entertainment Expo weekend. But what I found odd about this was that, you know, maybe it's just my mindset, but it just kind of seems that if you want to memorialize your wife who you loved, it seems like you would put her actual name on here, but it just promotes August Ames. And I think it's important to note that it appears that Kevin Moore owns quite a bit of content of August Ames, in other words, Mercedes Grabowski, and all the content that he owns through Evil Angel, he has stated as you'll see later on the forum post, that he'll receive residuals on for the rest of his life. Here's something that I thought was important that doesn't seem to be widely known. Jaxton Wheeler's wife has been trying to get it out there that she's under the belief, and it seems that other people are under the belief, that though online bullying attached to Jaxton and Jessica are to blame, or are allegedly to blame for August Ames' death, allegedly she never saw the tweets. And I'm going to read to you this tweet that Sully Savage put out. She says, "So for the record, because this is info that isn't being released, August Ames was found dead at 3:45 a.m. Jaxton did not make his tweet until 9:15 a.m. or 6:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, her time. She never even saw his tweet." So that seems to be something kind of important for people to realize, because he's being heavily blamed for prompting her death. And if she never saw the tweet, then that's something that people who have jumped on the blame Jaxton Wheeler bandwagon do need to be aware of, okay? Another thing that I feel is important is that when I first started looking into the death of Mercedes Grabowski, I came across this particular tweet in regards to an interview conducted by Holly Randall, who is a female pornographer, with August Ames. And this interview has been pulled, it seems, from most of Holly Randall's venues where she promotes and distributes her podcast. But it seems that somebody reposted the interview. And this is an important interview for people to listen to, because in the interview, Mercedes alleges quite a few very heartbreaking things in regards to her history. Namely, that before she entered the pornographic industry, when she was a child, she alleges that her grandfather sexually molested her. And when she approached her father in regards to the situation, he allegedly turned a blind eye to her. So, if you're able to find this interview, it's reposted on SoundCloud from, let's see, January 1st, from what it seems. Someone with the screen name Tony Sazin is who reposted it. So it's worth a listen. It really is. What I want to share with many of you are the actual forum posts that I uncovered, because considering that Mercedes Grabowski was in the adult entertainment industry for a very small percentage of her life, she was only in for a few years. So she really wouldn't have had a lot of time to develop a lot of a lot of the ideas that she seemed to have been projecting via her Twitter, if it is that she indeed did post the tweets that allegedly led to the bullying that she encountered. But what's important about these forum posts that I'm going to show you is that the forum posts do reflect quite a lot of the ideals and mantras that appear to have prompted the onslaught of anti-gay bullying that people are attempting to blame for her death. Sorry, now I'm actually starting this little slideshow with January Seraph, because a lot of the media that's surrounding the coverage of Mercedes Grabowski's death seems to be revolving around mental illness and how it affects porn stars. But I do want all of you to keep in mind that the porn star known as January Seraph was adamantly trying to speak out about mental illness, mental health, and its stigma that is projected upon individuals who choose to work within the adult entertainment industry. January Seraph died in early 2017, around April, and Mercedes Grabowski died in 2017, around December. So, I would like to see a little bit more acknowledgement in regards to the awareness that January Seraph was trying to draw in regards to mental health and whatnot. All right, so here's the first dark priest post that I'm going to share with you. And I'm just going to read it to you. The person who was asking him a question says, "Porn featuring transsexuals seems to be quite popular these days. You have previously talked about how the straight and gay porn production worlds are almost totally separate. Does the same go for the transsexual stuff?" And Kevin Moore responds, "Not as much. TS content is marketed to straight men. You have performers in the past who have done TS movies and who also work with genetic women as well. This is controversial, and the guys are often labeled crossover performers. There has been a real backlash against males that perform in TS scenes. In many ways, the TS genre is its own little micro industry. There was a period where it had really expanded and everyone was shooting it. Then it shrunk and many companies backed off from it. In the last 2 years or so, there has been a connection, whether real or made up, between the spread of HIV and the straight talent pool coming from the gay and transsexual talent pool. Due to that, there has been a backlash to the genres intermixing." So right away, here we are in April of 2014, and you have Kevin Moore, aka Dark Priest, making it known to the general public that there is a major separation, and he believes that the segregation between the quote unquote gay side of the industry and the straight side of the industry is necessary. Okay? Now, in this particular post, Kevin Moore is outlining who he is, what he does, is from December of 2000. What exactly do I do? I am a producer, director, distributed by Evil Angel. I also perform on camera, though this year I've scaled that back. Last year, I performed a great deal. Prior to becoming a producer at Evil Angel, I was a freelance camera operator and photographer for nearly every major company in the adult industry. What is your background? I am 40 years old and did not make the plunge full time into doing this until the year 2000. Prior to that, I grew up in Western Massachusetts. I was a Unix system admin for the UMass campus in Amherst, where I was very active in the 90s, running a series of Quake servers and Counter-Strike servers called Yoda's Barn. I am still an active gamer, though I don't have the time to play like I used to. Currently, I have been playing Titanfall and the Diablo expansion. And then he goes on into how he got into it, and he starts talking about some political things. But I think it's important to note that this man is very tech savvy, and I found it kind of odd that when Mercedes Grabowski was dealing with this onslaught of allegedly gay-centered hate towards her, Kevin Moore didn't seem to have any social media to come to his wife's aid. In contrast, you have pornographers such as Brad Armstrong, who is husband to Jessica Drake, one of the individuals who has been unjustifiably, from my perspective, blamed for August Ames' death, who anytime anyone says anything about Jessica, he is right there to defend her. All right. Now in this post, Kevin Moore is going over the STD testing. The question is, can you speak about the STD testing? Do you know any performers that had to quit because of an STD? What happened to that law requiring condoms? I haven't seen any new porn with condoms used. In this, we are required to test every 14 days. There are two specific labs that nearly everyone in the industry goes to that cater specifically to us, but are also open to the general public. You go to the draw center, fill out some paperwork, then you pee into a cup and have your blood drawn. These labs use the Aptima RNA test, which is the fastest way to test a person for HIV infection. In the past, there was a window of up to several weeks. With Aptima, that window is now 3 to 11 days. The industry used to require all performers to test every 28 days. If anyone has paid attention, last year the industry had some issues involving both syphilis and HIV. A well-known performer had acquired syphilis and even exhibited signs of the disease in stage 2, in other words, spots. For whatever reason, syphilis has had a major rebound in the general population. Large outbreaks in Europe and certain states in the US. No one else tested positive for syphilis, but the industry went to a 14-day required test after that. Some companies had started requiring it before this issue happened, which is what prompted the rest of the industry to start adopting the same standard. Late last year, when we had several performers test positive for HIV, one was a female performer and her boyfriend who performed on the gay side of the industry. Their female roommate also tested positive. And just to interject, here it sounds like he's talking about the Cameron Bay situation. Then several months after that, another male performer tested positive. He had acquired the illness from his personal life as he hadn't worked in a while. Due to the 14-day testing window, none of them were able to work and pass HIV on to anyone else. Due to their previous tests being negative, their viral load being high, and their most recent tests being positive, it showed they had all recently acquired the illness. But it makes the industry look terrible. It was also because of this that there is a huge backlash against crossover performers, which are male performers that do straight, as well as either gay or transsexual scenes. Both males mentioned earlier had done gay scenes, and it later came to light they were doing gay escorting. There did become, for a little bit, slight hysteria over crossovers, with girls refusing to work with any male that has done even a hint of gay work. That hysteria has died down a bit, but the damage is done. Whether or not there is a connection is something I don't know. But at the end of the day, people have to choose what they are willing to do with their body, and the girls have the right to refuse work with anyone they don't want to. Measure B, the so-called condom law that requires condoms in any adult productions shot in LA County, is currently being fought in court. There is currently a bill going through the California legislature to criminalize the production of porn without condoms. It failed last year getting through the legislature. Some companies have begun leaving California. Several have relocated to Las Vegas. Since Measure B tied requiring condoms to film permits have plummeted. All right, now here someone asks, what do you feel is your biggest achievement, direction, production, or acting, or your work that you're most pleased with, and why? Kevin Moore responds, becoming a producer at Evil Angel. It was always what I wanted. I honestly had given up on it happening and had gotten used to just freelance work, but then when I least expected it, it all came together and I was surprised. Honestly, 2 years later, I am still somewhat surprised. I'm happy with how the Hooker experience came out. I got a bunch of awards for it, and it was a popular title that sold well. I worked very hard on it, and I'm happy with the results. The only problem is that I have kept off making a sequel. The first one took a great deal out of me physically and mentally, And honestly, I'm concerned of not being able to make as successful of a follow-up. Now, I'm going to explain to you why I find that particular post of his very interesting. When I have a chance, if you go on my Periscope account, you can see my video review of the hooker experience. And I do hope to get that video on YouTube at some time in the future, whenever I have time, because I do have a regular job. But I find it interesting that Kevin Moore was concerned about the quote-unquote crossover male talents escorting, or the gay male talents escorting. But then he goes and creates a whole feature film about an exact how-to video, actually, as to how to hire a high-end porn star hooker or just a non-porn star hooker. I mean, this thing is as detailed as you can possibly be. But he glorifies that world. And in that particular video, he, as the John, does not utilize barrier protection with these prostitutes. So it's like, how are you going to say that the gay escorting is dangerous, but then on the other hand, glorify non-condom interaction with prostitutes in the straight world? That's a bit of hypocrisy from my perspective, but you know, I'm just here to show you what I found. So let me go ahead and continue here. Just give me a moment. Now, this is interesting too, because it has come out that Mercedes Grabowski, aka August Ames, had filed some sort of a lawsuit against Axel Braun, who is another pornographer who is contracted with Wicked Pictures. And here, years ago, it seems like Kevin Moore actually thought highly of Axel Braun. Not to say that your opinion can't change, but it's just interesting to me. I ask, what do you think of Axel Braun? Seems like he's basically the Steven Spielberg of you people at this point. And Kevin responds, Axel is porn royalty. His father was a highly successful and very well-known European producer and director. Axel is very good at what he does. So he didn't have a problem with Axel back then. All right, someone posts, what's with the LGBT hate? And someone else writes, the rate of HIV infection amongst gay men is something like 50 times as high as it is amongst heterosexuals. Since straight porn involves mostly sex without condoms, including anal sex, the idea is to keep anyone who might likely have HIV out entirely. And then Kevin writes, and this is May of 2014, because I see the date on here. There has been a slight hysteria, whether it is real or imagined, that men engaged in homosexual activity could bring HIV into the straight pool of talent. This is also fueled further by the fact the gay side of the industry does not test. Now, see, that's not exactly true. The gay side of the industry does test. So it's weird to me that he would say that. All right, and then here we are again in May of 2014. Someone asks, why the hell not? And I guess this is in regards to the testing. He says, there are lots of different opinions. The majority of gay companies do use condoms, but there are some that don't. The conversations I've had with people on that side of the industry is that many gay performers don't want to test. There is still stigmas with having HIV. They may not want to know or want others to know. Now, I'm wondering, how does Kevin know this? You know, does he know every gay performer in the gay side of the industry? Maybe he does. I don't know. All right, someone else says, have you performed in a scene with your partner? If so, how is it different from performing with another girl? Or is it not very different at all because of the environment and professionalism? He responds, yes, did scenes before and after. It's basically how I met her. And I think he's referring to Mercedes Grabowski here. It certainly is different because of the personal relationship. It is harder to be as professional with someone you know on much more personal basis. All right, someone posts, whoa, how in the world does anyone work on the gay side at all if that is the case? And this must be in regards to Kevin Moore's comments about the HIV and the testing and whatnot. He says, they mostly just use condoms. I'm not sure how the non-condom companies on the gay side handle things. I hope they test, but I don't have any direct knowledge on that. So, before he was saying that the gay side of the industry didn't test, then he backpedals and he says that the gay side of the industry does test. So he's giving the general populace and general public knowledge that he doesn't even really seem to know himself, but they're taking the knowledge that he's disseminating as the gospel, basically, which is ironic. He calls himself dark priest. So just considering the onslaught of hate and the ideals that Mercedes Grabowski seemed to have when it came to working with crossovers, it seems like a lot of this really has come from Kevin Moore because he's been laying the foundation for a lot of this mindset since 2014 and maybe even earlier. But let me go ahead and continue. All right. Now, here's something that I think is important because the hate crime, which is both racist, homophobic, and even misogynistic in nature, known as porn WikiLeaks, one of the adult entertainment industry's most notorious hate crimes, is brought up. Someone posts, this kind of builds on one of my earlier questions, but I'd like to ask it as a separate one since it gets into a more specific subject. What has happened with that porn WikiLeaks site since it popped up several years back? Has it caused any significant problems for anyone in the industry? And what has become of the site itself since then, or the guy running it? Now here's what Kevin Moore responds with. It caused an issue for a couple of weeks and then was forgotten about. It was started by a former C-level performer named Donnie Long. He pops up now and then. He ended up in Thailand. If you ever find his ramblings on Twitter, he just has an utter disdain for the industry, a zealous hatred of gay people, and a strange delusion that the industry is controlled by some gay cabal. He and his family were outed, as were others involved in the site. It was shut down for a while, but every so often pops back up. Donnie never contracted HIV. He just wasn't good at this and was bitter about it. Now, that is definitely a complete falsification from my perspective because, well, I just left the courthouse today in regards to the porn WikiLeaks situation. That website was never brought to legal closure. It was very briefly shut down. It caused problems for far more than a few weeks. Right now, Donnie Long, aka Donald Carlos Sion, is back in South Florida, the Miami area specifically. As of current, there are a tremendous amount of personal addresses, telephone numbers, in my case, my government issue IDs, everything on that website. And for this dude, Kevin Moore, to diminish the hate crime that it is, especially being that so many of the mantras that porn WikiLeaks consistently, daily dispels that are homophobic in nature, reflecting and paralleling his "it's my body, it's my choice" mantra when it comes to discriminating against people in the gay community and people who are Black or African American. That right there, to me, that's sick. And that tells me a lot about Kevin Moore, and it makes me wonder a lot about Kevin Moore. So at some point, he needs to readdress that, in my opinion, because he did not tell the truth to quite a few people who took his word as the gospel. Dark priest. All right, let me continue. All right, now here's what's interesting. This is just a screen grab from Twitter. It's from January of 2013, which is before Kevin Moore made a lot of the posts that I've already gone over with you. This is Donald Carlos Sion utilizing his old Twitter account, which was xxfilmjobs.com, tweeting directly to Kevin Moore about a man named Ari Bass, formerly known as Michael Whitaker. Donald Carlos Sion tweets to Kevin Moore and says, "Did you know gay Jew fanboy Mr. Whitaker fucks trannies? Read our forum." I find that very interesting, because why would it be that for some reason Donald Carlos Sion felt it would be of interest to Kevin Moore, who allegedly within the adult entertainment industry is matriculating with someone who is a tranny? Why would that be? It's because they communicate it regularly. From my perspective, that's why. Let's continue. So here we are, back to May of 2014, and he's talking about Mercedes Grabowski here. Someone posts, "What does it feel like dating a girl less than half your age? Do you have much in common with her at all? Do you ever plan to settle down in the conventional sense, like retire and get married or something? Just in general, not with her in particular. If that kind of question is too personal, then I apologize. Just pass them over." But he responds. He says, "She's really mature for her age. She's easy to get along with. She has that Canadian stereotype, down to earth, very nice and honest. Age has never really bothered me before. I've dated all over the map, from much younger women to older than me. All comes down to how you get along. I was married several years back. After a while, she hated my job more and more and eventually left." So I find that interesting, because if he's referring to a marriage he had while he was in the porn industry, which is what I would assume, it's interesting to me that he would choose working in the adult entertainment industry over love. But maybe he didn't love her. Who knows? Now, this is interesting too. Someone asks, "What are your retirement plans, if any?" He responds, "Hopefully it won't be for a long time. I do contribute to a retirement fund. I am also very fortunate that I own all my product at Evil Angel and will get royalties on it for the rest of my life." That is a very important thing for people to keep in mind, and I'm going to explain to you why and how it relates to this recent onslaught of adult entertainer porn star deaths. August Ames obviously shot for Evil Angel. From what I can see, Kevin Moore owns quite a bit of content of August Ames. So even though she's dead, he's going to receive residuals on that for the rest of his life. On top of that, August Ames content is probably through the roof popular right now. considering all of the media attention she's received since she's died. And let's add on top of that all of the free marketing in regards to August Ames adult content that Kevin Moore has received via the passing out of all those free t-shirts at the Adult Entertainment Expo. But it's important to note that she is not the only porn star who died that Kevin Moore is linked to. Yurizon Beltran starred in Kevin Moore's most popular movie, which he mentioned in one of the earlier posts that I read to you, The Hooker Experience. She was in scene number 5, and she was not just an actress playing a hooker, she was also listed as available on The Luxury Companion, which is an escort site that specializes in linking up the general populace with adult entertainers. Very important. So let's continue. Let me go back to the screen share. All right, this one isn't so important, but just to summarize, this has to do with the worst things that female models have to deal with during a shoot. And Kevin Moore talks about it being a very physically demanding job. He talks about how sometimes he pays for, or at least in the past, he paid for models to fly out, which is questionably a violation of something called the Mann Act when I think about it. But I'll talk about that another day. Let's see, is this one important? No. All right, here they're talking about porn WikiLeaks again. Someone mentions, here's a question for you. A year or 3 years ago, there was some actor, apparently a real drama queen, who created a Wikipedia of sorts of on porn stars. And Kevin Moore responds, I don't know any performers that use their stage name when not on set. The site you are referring to was run by a guy named Donnie Long. The people that funded and aided his site were exposed, as was many of the personal things in his life. He pops up now and then online, but for several years now, he has just been hiding out in Thailand. But in regards to performers that use their stage name when they're not on set, there's a bunch of them. It's weird to me, the things that this guy says. It's like maybe he lived in the valley too long, because there's a lot of performers who use their stage name when not on set. And there's a lot of performers who use their real name when on set. I think in a later post, he's like, oh, I don't even know any performers hardly to where they, you know, anyone calls them their real name. Yeah, it's like, where do you live, Kevin Moore, if you've been in this industry for so long? A lot of things that you're saying really are not true and don't make any sense. And in regards to Donald Sion being in Thailand, like I said, he's back. And a lot of what he's saying sounds a lot like what you're saying. But let's continue. Okay, this is interesting. Here he's talking about prostitution. I'm just going to read a part of what was asked of him. Number 1, prostitution. Should it be legal or illegal? Kevin responds, it exists already. It will never be stopped. For the safety of all those involved, it should be legalized in certain areas and taxed. Then he goes on in regards to answering another question. Condoms do not sell. So I find that interesting that he is pro-prostitution, and I want to just stop here and talk about that a little bit. Because though he seems to be pro-escorting and pro-prostitution, not only in this forum, but obviously he made that whole movie, which was a how-to movie basically, about how to hire a porn star who was also a prostitute or a high-end escort or a sugar baby or anything, basically. But what's interesting about that is that Mercedes Grabowski seemed to be very non-supportive of that. She seemed to be very anti-escorting. She made it clear on her Twitter on a multitude of occasions that she does not escort. So it does lead one to wonder, was there a little bit of a conflict there between those two as to, you know, was there some sort of like pressure upon Mercedes in regards to her escorting? Because she obviously didn't want to. But again, Kevin Moore made it known that he was saying, hey, it should be legalized. And actually it is legal in certain counties of Nevada. But the way that he depicts and glamorizes it in the hooker experience, all the ways that he shows to go about hiring a prostitute is actually illegal. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So let's see, what else do I want to show y'all? Here we go. Now this is actually from the Reddit forum. Someone asked him 5 years ago, do you ever film gay porn? I know it's not your typical shoot, but I'm sure sometimes offers just come through. It's not like it's remarkably different. This isn't really a question, but a quick search shows that you have quite the nice hammer. Okay. Kevin responds, the two industries are very separate. Gay performers aren't as comfortable around straight shooters. It is better to have gay shooters do the job. You would think it isn't that different, but it is. And I found that response interesting because, again, how does Kevin Moore know this? How does he know how all gay performers think? That's weird to me. All right, so here he's talking about James Dean a little bit. Someone asks him what his impression is of James Dean and his reputation for being quote unquote rapey. And Kevin responds, I shot James early on in his career. No doubt he is a very good performer. However, there might be two sides to that. Over the years, I heard repeated stories, the same stories, and more have now become public. After hearing these detailed incidences multiple times, I decided I wouldn't hire him anymore. All right, now here's an interesting post I found in the archives of Lucas Back that I want to share with you, and this has to do with his history in regards to the quote-unquote gay side of the industry. This is from 2007, apparently. It says, Kevin Moore directing for Smash. Does Kevin have a strong enough heterosexual drive to pull this off? Can he make porn for straight men? As a white man, does he have a strong enough pimp hand to keep these bitches in line? And then there's a press release that follows. And I felt like this was interesting. This is from the Old Adult FYI archives. Now the date here is incorrect because the database has been re-uploaded multiple times. But this was probably initially written by Eugene Rosansky, also known as Gene Ross. Twitter news, Kevin Moore's moratorium story, and he's sticking by it. Gene, I was already done when I got word. Everyone knows that Kevin Moore, who directs for Evil Angel, broke the industry moratorium, but not according to him. And what's even funnier, his boss, Christian Mann, is vice president of the Free Speech Coalition. Delay in communications. You gotta wonder. Kevin Moore tweets to Brittany Shannon. I was notified like everyone else via an email at a little after 3 p.m. on Friday. The scene was already finished. And then he says to Brittany again, I shot Friday before the moratorium was put into effect. You can confirm with your agent since he booked the scene. And just so many of you are aware, today, Christian man is dead. Now, this is an article also from the Adult FYI archives in regards to a young woman that Kevin Moore dated prior to Mercedes Grabowski. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because I read it in a previous Alexandra Mayers live video that you can find on my YouTube channel. But I am going to read the last part because it's interesting to me that today you have Kevin Moore spouting the mantra, your body, your choice. But he sounded like he was really controlling when it came to this young woman's choice and body. And I'm just going to read I'm just going to read the last paragraph to you. And this is in regards to a performer known as Veronica Lynn. This was an interview that she did with Eugene Rosansky. And she states that Moore doesn't want her doing interracial scenes nor gangbangs. Quote, I was supposed to do a 4-on-1, but he said that's getting too close to a gangbang, end quote. Moore will let her work with 2 guys at the most. And then it goes on. And here's Veronica Lynn, just so y'all know what she looks like, okay? Now, here's another article, and this has to do with another situation that I outlined in a separate video. This has to do with a situation involving the porn star known as Christian XXX or Christian Wyans. And again, the whole mantra of your body, your choice not being extremely or not being entirely respected because Christian was asked to work with a performer that he wasn't comfortable in working with. It didn't seem like his decision was respected, namely by Kevin Moore. And I'll probably touch on this in another video too, because this video is becoming kind of long. So that's about it. That's about it. I just wanted to go over some of that material with many of you because, as you can see, Kevin Moore seems to have been projecting some ideals and mantras and just blatant lies for a while. A lot of what he says, as I noted, does parallel with a lot of things, a lot of the hate that Porn WikiLeaks likes to tell the general public. So, you know, this is just my perspective. This is my commentary. A lot of this is my opinion. But I did show you some facts here. So make up your own mind. But I do encourage all of you out there to do your own research when it comes to certain things. Don't necessarily readily believe the popular opinion or the opinion that's being forced down your throat, because oftentimes there's people behind those opinions with some pretty negative and hateful agendas. So that's about it for tonight. Have a good one, everyone. This was Alexandra of Alexandra Mayers Live.